Hey, how's it going? So we've got the rails completed. So at this point, basically, I've just got a lot of sanding and routering that needs to be done. I think my next major project is I've got the seats kind of set in here and clamped in place. And what I'm going to do is run the router around the inside edge of this while I've got it clamped and put a nice rounded edge on that and probably some of the other areas. And I'll probably spend the weekend also doing a router edge on the rails, or I may decide I'm going to tentatively try the router, but I may end up just using a sander on it. I don't. I've heard with the curve and the compression of the curve that it can split really easy with the router, so we'll kind of go at it easily and see how it goes. So anyway, my next project is to run a curve around the inside of that. So that's where we're at. So I've got the 3/8 router bit installed, and now I got to adjust the height of the router, and we're going to make sure we're not too low. So I'm going to lock it down somewhere about like that. I'm going to start here. I ordered the floorboard kit for the dinghy, and that's what this is. Now the way it comes, it's been cut out with the computer-aided design, so it leaves these little tabs on there. But on the floorboards, you also have these other little tabs like this that are spacers. So we're going to remove the smaller ones with a plane, and we're going to leave those in place. And then I'm going to take a router and router over the top edge with a 1/4 inch radius. So that's today's project. All right, so we're going to take this little tab here off. That was what was left when the computer-aided machine cuts it off. Got all the floorboards routed out. They need some touch up with a sanding block, which is my next project. And then I'll probably do a light sanding with, I think maybe a 220. So then I'm going to put some stain on it, and we'll see what that looks like. I may experiment a little bit. And the Akumbi on the dinghy, it's all a single, I mean, it's a nice warm color, and I think it'll look really nice when it's varnished. But everything's kind of the same color. I'm sure the mahogany rails will be a little darker, but I would like a little contrast for the seats and the floorboards. So I'm going to do a mahogany stain on those, just so it's not all the same color. So we'll see how that looks. Okay, so I've temporarily installed the floorboard so I can drill the holes into the frames. So that's my project here, and they've got a pre-drilled hole, but it's not pre-drilled into the frame. So we're going to see how this works. Now this will all be coming back out because I need to completely recoat this with epoxy. But at this point, it's kind of a trial fit. So it's pretty well centered as far as as close as I can get. Now these are under tension. I really need to have my weight. They're basically curved. So I have to have my weight on them to kind of bend them into the position they need to go, which makes things a little more difficult. All right, let me get a couple of them at the very front. Okay, so I'm going to continue to add more screws and panels, and we'll see what this all looks like when we get it all temporarily installed. This is the last two sections of the floorboard, and you can see there's the little tabs here that provide the spacing, but it also is compressed this way, so you got to kind of squish it down. So I'm going to put a couple of screws in the middle part here. And where's my drill? And this is not the final install, it's just a temporary. Until I can, where do my screws go? Fuck. Oh. What do you think? Okay, so now let's move up to this one. This is, again, it's just kind of the temporary installation. And then I'm going to take everything back out and we're going to recoat the interior of, after I finish sanding the interior of it, I'm going to put at least a couple of coats of epoxy on it. Fill the holes that we just drilled with epoxy so that they're sealed up with, so water can't get into them. And then re-drill them, and then at some point we'll reinstall these at a later date. And my next step is to coat the floorboards and the seats with a couple of coats of epoxy. And as you can see, I stained those. I wanted a little darker color just to kind of contrast with the warm color of the Akumbi. So I've mixed up some epoxy, and let's roll some epoxy onto the seat. Okay, I'm just going to pour some epoxy here and then just spread it around with the roller. So we'll just kind of, that'll get me started. So I'm going to mix up some more epoxy to do the area up there. But before I do that, I'm going to tip this. I don't know if you can see the little air bubbles that the roller introduces. But to solve that, or to, at least to improve things, just take a little brush or a foam brush, I find works really good, and you just lightly run it across the surface. You can almost hear a little squeak noise like tennis shoes on a basketball court, and that just breaks the air bubbles and will give you a lot smoother surface. All right, let me get some more epoxy mixed up. I have completed 2 to 3 coats of epoxy on all the seats and the floorboards. In preparation for, or the next step on those would be to varnish them. Before I get to that point, I'm going to put all of those out into my storage shed and give me some room. And the next project is to sand the interior of the hull nice and smooth, and then overcoat it with 2 to 3 coats of epoxy. So that's the next step, and I just love sanding, so that'll be fun. We'll see you a little further down the line. Thanks.